Joining us now to discuss that and to recap the G20 meeting is Colin Bradford. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute. Colin, great for you to join us. And do you agree at all with Stephen Roach that this is basically a recipe that has no teeth?
It's a recipe that has teeth in the sense that it's put the world economy on a path which they will revisit as early as November in Seoul, Korea, where there will be a comprehensive work action program under the new framework for strong, sustainable, and balanced growth.
Right.
Which basically is the long-term trajectory for these 20 economies to work together so that the combination of financial stability and growth is realized over the medium term, even though there are disagreements about the budget now.
Well, what is going to show that this has teeth, that they are enforcing this by the time they get to Seoul at the end of this year?
Well, I think the whole trick here is that you've got countries that have trade surpluses and other countries that have trade deficits. And what you want is a pathway forward in which these are able to be worked out in a way that allows all countries to achieve financial stability and growth at the same time,
right, even
though their conditions are very different. And so it's not a question of whether or not, the thing about the G20, which is different than the G8, is that you have countries that are vastly more diverse in the G20, both in economic and cultural and institutional circumstances. So you don't expect everyone to agree on the same things. What you need is complementary actions in each place. So I think the fact is that this has teeth.
Right, but what would that mean then? What would China have to do going back now? Now that what do the Chinese have to do by the end of this year? What do the U.S. have to do? What does Germany have to do then?
Well, I think what they have to do is the U.S. has to give a definite pathway forward, as the president said he would do in his next budget, a definite pathway forward about how to close the fiscal deficit here.
Okay.
The Chinese have already moved on the exchange rate in the run-up to this summit. That's a huge thing in terms of changing the degree to which they depend on subsidized exports.
Right, but President Obama had said the evidence will be in the eating, will be essentially what the Chinese do on the exchange rate after this, right? 6 months from now, where's the rate?
Sure. But you've got a process in place in the G20 that does hold each of these countries' feet to the fire in relation to everyone else. I mean, if the Chinese make a commitment in the run-up to the to the Toronto summit, and by Seoul have not done anything about it, then I think you've got more heat on them. And they know that that's the process that's in place, and so they aren't going to make a commitment that they can't follow through on, and likewise for the other countries.
Well, don't you think, though, Colin, that the hardest job is going to be for Angela Merkel to get Europe on board? Don't you think she's got the hardest job?
Well, I think we're not asking we were asking, Obama was asking Germans to expand more. But the truth of it is that if they do engage in more deficit spending on a sustained basis going forwards, it is going to drive up interest rates, and that's going to make the deficits even bigger. So I think you have to recognize that the political dynamics inside each of these countries is different.
Right.
And therefore, we don't need cookie-cutter approaches where everybody does exactly the same thing at the same moment together, but you do complementary things in relation to each other over time. And that's the pathway that the G20 has put the world on.
Okay. Colin, thanks so much. That is teeth. Okay, we're going to see come November. All right, Colin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Colin Bradford, the senior fellow on global economics at the Brookings Institute. Well.